Hey folks, this is Herb. This next video I'm doing is going to be called Making the Best of a Bad Situation. It's everything it sounds like. You may only have one gig, and it's the same place every week or every month. And it's getting old because you want to do other places. You want to go travel. You have so many ideas and you just want to throw them out there. You may also be in a band that doesn't even have gigs right now, and you're just waiting for something to open up. Well, one thing's for sure. It all determines on your personality and your way of looking at things. Because if you decide to quit, well, you already know what the outcome is then. So it's up to you. And it's only over if you say it's over. I'll give you a backstory about me. About 15 years ago, I was in a relationship with a girl back east. We were together for about a year. We had good chemistry. It felt pretty good. For that time, we would enjoy ourselves, but she had no family out here. And her friends and her life that she had was all back east. And for me, I didn't understand that because I was just happy that I was happy. I was like, it's all about me. And I was young and naive and selfish. Well, she ended up moving back east, and I felt lost. And at that moment, I'm sitting there trying to reflect on everything I did wrong. It's amazing how you listen to people whenever your heart's broke. But I had some good friends too. But I took it for granted. My friend Chris came out all the way for 250 miles from Nevada to Idaho. And he did it knowing that he had to go back to work in 17 to 20 hours. But he came out to hang out with me. And he says, man, we got to start a band. And let's get this going. Let's do it this time. And I'm like, yeah, you know what? Let's do it. But my heart really wasn't in it like his was. And I ended up meeting one of his friends. His name was Dusty. And Dusty ended up becoming my friend too. And over that time, we got to know each other while I was in Nevada with Chris for that time. He decided that they were going to try to start something with me, and they moved to Idaho with me, and we started jamming a little bit, and we'd go out on the weekends to the strip bars and the bars and do guy stuff, try to enjoy being young. And they purchased music equipment, and Dusty bought a PA system, and they really took it serious. But for me, I wasn't as serious as they were. They really wanted to get it started, and I kept procrastinating. And over that time, I think they got fed up, and so they moved back to Nevada, and rightfully so, because I took advantage of their friendship. Well, when it rains, it pours. My family decided that they were going to leave Idaho and they wanted to move to California. And I wasn't having any of it. I didn't want to go. I was wanting to try to stick it out there and see what happens, and maybe things will get better, and I was too busy living in my past too. Well, either way it went, that was their decision to make, because if I wanted to stay there, I'd have to pay a whole bunch of bills that I couldn't afford to do. So we moved to California, and as I was there, it felt different for me because we moved in the Humboldt County area. And if you've ever been to Humboldt County, California, it's like being in another world. And I met a lot of homeless people there, and it was like, wow, this is different. And I felt out of place. But I learned something. I learned something about me, and I learned something about people and how we interact with people. There was a place called Blue Lake Casino. It's in Blue Lake, California. And I remember on Thursdays I would go out there, and it was on karaoke night, ladies' night karaoke. And I met a karaoke DJ by the name of Leonard Smith. And I got the nerve one night to sing a Jeff Healey song. And Leonard comes up to me and he's like, sounds really good, man. You play in a band or anything? And I said, well, I used to, but I'm not really a singer. I'm a guitar player. And he starts telling me, oh, really? I used to sing. He told me he used to cover the Doobie Brothers and all the oldies and stuff. He said he had a friend that plays drums. His name was Ron. Well, I said, that's cool. And he says, well, maybe sometime we'll jam. And well, I took it like a grain of salt. I really didn't think much of it. But, over a little bit of time and getting to meet Ron, he says, hey, yeah, maybe we'll jam at my place. So he gets a hold of me, and we go over to his house, and I started playing with him and Leonard. And we didn't have a bass player, but we were jamming, and it was fun. And I was meeting new people, and I was letting go. At that time, I was letting go a little piece of my past and enjoying the present for what it was. Maybe I didn't have everything I wanted at that time, but I was getting to interact and understand a little bit about myself at the same time. Well, Leonard decided on Wednesdays he wanted to start doing open mic, and I jammed on an open mic night on Wednesday, and there was no other musician, so it was odd for me because I was just playing guitar by myself and singing a little. But, the next week, some musicians started coming out, and I had a bass player now, a guy that played bass, and then I had Ron that played drums. So I felt like I had a three-piece band, and it was fun. We would do like a set of music and let other musicians come up and do their thing and jam, and we'd get compliments, and it felt good. You feel a sense of pride whenever you get somebody liking what you do. Well, Leonard decided that he needed a little bit of help running the open mic, because he does karaoke on Thursdays, and then on open mic night on Wednesdays, he'd have to carry all of his PA equipment. So he hired me to help him out there and give me a little bit of change. And I got to go back area towards the casino, because you have to have like a card and stuff like that, because they don't want to take too many chances on getting strangers back there without having some kind of identification to track down if something did happen. Well, over the series of weeks of helping him run open mic, I started meeting more musicians and learning new styles. I started listening to different music. I was listening to different styles of like the Please, Prince, Dire Straits, and it started opening up more of a wider range of music I started liking. And I met this kid that was going to Humboldt University that was a jazz guitar player, terrific guitarist, monster guitar player. And, I found inspiration around the whole scene of musicians. And it helped me become a better musician because I kept practicing more, and I wanted to become a better guitar player. But I ended up meeting this band called The Sinners, and their lead singers and guitar player, his name was St. John. And they would do like a lot of James Brown, Eric Clapton stuff. And they sounded really good. They had a horn section and stuff. They were trying to build themselves out there to play the casinos, and they tried to get Leonard to help them get into Blue Lake. Well, at that time I was ready to move on. My family decided that maybe we would move to Nevada, because I moved around a lot in my life. That's one thing you'll learn about me. We decided in a week or two that we were going to move to Winnemucca. So I informed Leonard. I said, well, in a little bit of time, I'm going to let you know that I won't be helping you on an open mic because I won't be around. And he said, well, it's going to suck seeing you go, but just keep in touch. So I started talking to some of the other musicians in there and kind of telling them goodbye and stuff. And the drummer of The Sinners, he's like, are you going to be around next week? And I'm like, well, no, because I'm moving to Nevada. And he's like, well, that's too bad, because there's a camera crew coming out. And I said, well, what for? And he said, the lead singer, the guitar player, St. John, his dad was E. Howard Hunt. He was a CIA officer or whatever, and he helped cover up the Watergate scandal under Richard Nixon. Well, take it in mind, I'm listening to this and I'm going right back to the California story, as I call it, because I thought it was all BS. It sounded like they were full of shit. I said, well, that sounds cool. Hey, you guys have fun. And then I left, and he said goodbye. And a few months later, I'm I'm in Nevada at an Albertsons, and I'm over looking at guitar magazines because my big thing was always looking for the latest Guitar World or Guitar Player magazine. And I see a Rolling Stone magazine there, and I see this familiar face on there, on the bottom part of that magazine. I'm like, he looks familiar. And I look up a little closer, and it says St. John. It says his dad had the old tapes, confession tapes of the John F. Kennedy assassination. So I go back to the storyline, wherever midway through the book, and I'm starting to read it. I'm like, wow, this guy, I guess he really did have interviews with these guys. I don't know if this was true or not as far as him having any connections with John F. Kennedy's assassination, but it made a great story, and obviously Rolling Stone and other people took on to that story, and it was something to remember for me, because I felt like I met somebody that was kind of important, and it made a great story. But as I was playing with other musicians in Nevada, I started sharing some of the ideas that I learned from Humboldt County and some of the California musicians, from the Prince stuff to some of the Police stuff, and just opening up that range of music that I learned there and rubbed it off on some of the other places I went to. Unfortunately, a few months later, my dad passed away, and that was a really tough moment in my life because I felt like quitting. But I had good people that were around me that made sure that I didn't. And it's amazing the power of belief in somebody else, how that will keep you going. And I kept my faith, and I ended up moving back to Idaho, and I started playing music around the Treasure Valley area. And I took those ideas that I learned from California and shared them off with some other musicians. I guess the best way to say this is try to keep your head up. And as long as you don't quit, you're going to find some good things that happen in between. You're going to learn new stuff that you didn't know before. You'll be able to share it with the things that happen in your future. And I hope some of the stuff that I shared with you helps you out. And maybe you can pass this on to somebody else one day. But either way, keep your head up and don't quit.